All right. So today we have Sir Nick Jones and Blake Engelhart. We're doing this video here so that the school, the churches can get to know these guys. As many of you know, I'm transitioning out, and I'm super jealous, excited that you guys get to get both of these guys, my buddies, my friends, both Nick and Blake. So we thought we'd just do this video to facilitate that you guys could get to know both of them a little bit. I know Blake from actually undergrad. A little quick story on Blake. He was definitely much stronger than I in undergrad, and I just learned quickly to never wrestle with Blake. He took me and like 2 or 3 friends and put us in an elevator once. Pretty strong. But don't worry, he won't be wrestling.
Loving kindness.
And I hear that he's great at wrestling church members. I'm just kidding. No, he's a great guy. And I know Nick from being a fellow pastor, and when I worked in the office, got to know Nick a bit. He's always been involved in music and whatnot. So been able to be one of the pastors that was close in age to me. So anyways, I want them to get to know you guys. So maybe we can start with you, Nick. Who are you?
I'm Nick.
Yeah.
Grew up in the Maryland, D.C. area. Was born here in Portland area, but grew up in D.C. My dad worked for the federal government. We did a stint in Germany for 4.5 years and all out there. Came to Walla Walla 2003, graduated in 2007, and been in the Oregon Conference ever since.
Do you speak German?
Ein bisschen.
A little bit?
Very, very, very little.
Ein bisschen. I know like almost nothing. So.
Sehr gut.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are some of your passions, hobbies, interests, things like that?
Oh my goodness. I have lots of hobbies. I picked up cycling at seminary. I'm a big cyclist. Haven't done as much cycling lately, but I love cycling. I used to do triathlons. I do running, backpacking, hiking, ham radio, woodworking. My wife tells me I have way too many hobbies.
It's quite a few. That's cool.
But passion stuff is music. I love music. I play guitar, mandolin. I dabble in piano. I sing. I played trumpet in high school. I still have my trumpet around here somewhere. Music is definitely a passion of mine.
So do you, what about do you do the banjo, dude?
I have tried to play the banjo, but I don't own one, so I don't get to practice the banjo.
I really like the banjo. I know that's like super old style and stuff, but honestly, I think it's folk music. I love folk music, so that's super cool. So Blake, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? Help us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. I was born and raised in Hermiston, Oregon, which is eastern Oregon, just south of the Columbia River. And when I was 5 years old, my parents bought a house with 8 acres, and then we just started renovating it. My dad's a building contractor, my mom's a teacher, and so we spent a lot of time renovating and I worked with my dad a lot in construction. So when I was 5 or 6, I was out picking up blocks and throwing them in a wheelbarrow to be thrown into a burn pile. And so I enjoy projects. I enjoy renovating. We've renovated a house in Berrien Springs, and I like working on cars. I did a rebuild when I was pastoring in Longview before seminary. A couple of friends of mine and I worked together a little bit on rebuilding a wrecked Subaru. And then I like working on stuff, tangible projects, but also I connect with a lot of different kinds of people, and I pretty friendly guy, so it's pretty easy to get along with people. And yeah, I pastored for 3 years in Longview, and then went to seminary in Southwest Michigan, and now just got back with things shut down with COVID, and just waiting for stuff to start opening back up, and then hopefully we can get moved out there for sure. Hopefully we can get moved out before we're having church in person at least. But yeah, we're excited. My wife and I are excited to move to the Newberg area and get involved in the community. And I'm looking forward to being the pastor in Newberg. And we'll be moving out there with our 15-month little girl. And yeah, it's just a lot of unknowns for us all right now, but we're taking it one day at a time, trying to stay positive and trying to stay busy.
Awesome. So what are some of your hobbies, the things that you love to do on your own time, your passions?
I like being outdoors, so hiking or kayaking or biking, I enjoy that. I'm not a biker, so I won't identify as a biker. And I think Nick would definitely be at the level where he could identify as a biker, but I'm nowhere near that. A cycler.
I heard
Cyclist.
I heard biker.
A unicycler.
Come on, get the correct term.
So
It's cyclist.
if he corrects you with the term, he is that. He is a cyclist. No.
I heard he wears leathers though when he cycles.
No.
So he's really a biker.
Spandex. I wear
Full
spandex.
Full face, that's better. But yeah, so I really enjoy being outdoors, whether it's out moving from point A to point B, or enjoying the journey, or building something. I like to be outside. This is kind of new to me. I've only really done one other like video thing where it was a little bit more formal, more than just FaceTime with people. But so I don't have a microphone, I don't have a fancy camera, but I guess that might be a passion of mine in the near future.
So I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, but I really wish there was some way that could facilitate me being around here still, with you guys being able to be with these guys. I'm so excited that both of you guys get to be out here and minister out in these churches. I'm glad that me and Blake get a little bit of overlap.
Yeah.
But,
I know that both Nick and I definitely wish there was a way for you to be around, like if you can do distance learning or something, to stay out there.
I can visit, but that
Yeah.
might be a little while too now. So yeah, cool. So
well, and it sounds like you're really well loved out there, Jeff, and I know that the community is going to miss you. So it's really nice that you're putting this together so you can help pass the torch off, because you're highly respected out there. So it means a lot that you're willing to do this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's sad in one sense, because it's been a lot of fun, and I know God like led me out here, but also it's sad to say bye to a lot of people in such an amazing community. I mean, I prayed about it, and I came out and I'm like, wow, you gave me exactly what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And people there's a lot of people I look up to so much and learn so much from, but also realizing that God's leading in a different direction right now, and that's okay, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just so stoked, because I know it's going to be in such good hands with you guys. So
Well, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
So with that said, we were going to transition, and unless you guys want to talk about anything else before we talked about the other subject.
Oh, I had a story I was going to share with you, but we're running low on time. So no, just kidding.
Good one. Started in an elevator. So we were going to do a quick chat about just kind of like a devotional discussion, Bible theme sort of thing that Nick has been studying some stuff. Maybe you can kind of kick it off with us, Nick, and what is been the stuff that you've been studying recently and of interest to you?
Something that's been it's been kind of in and out of my studies as I've been reading more Ty Gibson and David Asscherick stuff, and this idea of covenant. It's kind of old language, but this idea that covenant is this relational thing. God is covenant. God is relational, and He has relational integrity with us. And it's really been fascinating, especially in the current state of affairs that we're in this idea of being relationally oriented towards other people. A verse that really popped into my head just recently is in Hosea 6 and 7, where God is talking to the children of Israel, and He says, "For I desire faithful love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. But they, like Adam, have violated the covenant. There they have betrayed me." As I thought of this, as I thought through this verse, a couple things, struck out to me. First of all, covenant is mentioned there in verse 7, but then it's mentioned in the context of what God is desiring, faithful love. And what I love about the word faithful love is that it's a beautiful Hebrew word that I think all of us should say together with the guttural chesed.
Chesed.
Yeah. It's not as well known as agape. It's very similar to agape. But this idea of chesed, and there's so many English words that are needed to understand the concept of chesed, like faithfulness, loyalty, love, and I'm trying to find my list here of other words that are used: goodness, kindness, mercy. I mean, just you go through, you look up this verse in multiple translations, you'll find it translated differently to try and grasp what the meaning of chesed is. And so I love what Ty Gibson says in regards to this verse. He describes covenant in this way: it involves living with unbreakable relational integrity. To say that God is a God of covenant is to say that God is relationally faithful to all others above and before Himself, and at any and all cost to Himself. Covenant is therefore a biblical word that communicates God's core identity, His essential character. So to the question, who is God? The Bible answers, God is covenantly faithful.
I like that. So, what's the significance of it in Scripture? Because it's covenant is a huge theme. Like, from the beginning all the way to the end is kind of what I've gathered as I've looked at it. Haven't studied as deep as you, but what's some of the significance? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more of the. Because I seem to remember, like, back in Genesis, there's a lot about it. There's Genesis 15. You were telling us about that earlier, and that I love that passage, Genesis 15.
Yeah. In Genesis 15, Abram is God. God tells Abram He's going to have a son earlier in Genesis chapter 12, but in the Genesis chapter 15, He again tells Abram, "You're going to have a son, and then he's going to have this land." And what's interesting is that, and this land is going to be for your offspring. And what's interesting is that Paul makes this really clear. And if you read the Hebrew, it kind of stands out too. It's not the seed or the offspring is a singular Hebrew word. And Paul brings that out in Galatians, where it's to your seed, not seeds. And he makes it really clear that the seed coming from Abram is going to be the Messiah. And Paul says it's Jesus, the Christ, fulfilling the relational integrity that God has. But in Genesis chapter 15, God has Abram do something really, really weird that we think is weird. He has Abram cut up some animals. So an oxen, what are the animals here? It's an ox, a goat, a ram, a cow, a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he's supposed to split up those animals, and then the birds don't get split up, and lay them on the ground. And it's really weird for us today because that's not something that we do.
And in fact, if you caught your kids doing this,
yeah. If I caught my 5 and 3-year-old doing something like this, he'd be like,
It's
let's
psyche
have a
foul.
discussion.
Let's go see a psychiatrist.
Yeah. So God has Abram do this. The ancient Near East practice, this was a common ancient Near East practice, and this is the way that you cut a covenant. Is basically covenant is to cut. You cut a covenant, and this was how you basically said, I promise to keep the agreement that we're having. You know, half of me is promising. You know, I'm giving half of me to make sure this happens. And if I don't uphold my end of the covenant, of the promise, may this cutting happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's really interesting is that God has Abram cut these animals up, and then Abram just watches them. He keeps the birds of prey from coming and eating the animals. He just watches it. He just all day he watches it. And nowhere in the Bible, nowhere in the passage is it mentioned that Abram walks through it, because when a lesser person and a king made some kind of agreement, the lesser person was the one who was going to walk through that covenant, not the king. But what we find is that later on in Genesis 15, Abram has a vision of this smoking pot going through the animals, and it's God walking through. And we see God having relational integrity by saying, I promise, I covenant, I'm going to keep my end of the promise here. And may this cutting happen to me if the promise is not kept. Abram doesn't walk through it. God himself takes on the responsibility of keeping the covenant. And we find that all the way in the New Testament, when Jesus is hanging on the cross, when he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? God himself is being cut in half. In essence, the Trinity is being cut because we weren't faithful to the covenant that was made.
That's like a couple of things just jogged my memory and make me think, like, first off, that's very visual. And second off, like, oops, decline. One of my buddies trying to FaceTime me. That's like super visual, but at the same time, like, I think it really adds like nuance and understanding to like the cross, that when Jesus is in Gethsemane, my God, why it's, and then at the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? That like that assundering, that separation between amongst the Godhead, and that sin ultimately separates, and it separated Jesus from the Father and the Spirit. And that's like, yeah, what he did, like the relational connection that they had for eternity was separated. And to me, at least, like being connected to a person, like even in a relationship for like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 9 months, like the amount of pain you go through when there's a separation. You guys being married, you could probably say that way more after being together for years, but God being together for, I mean, eternity.
Yeah.
And then he did that for us. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, that kind of just blows my mind.
Yeah, I've always loved this story, and looking at this and seeing, how relationally faithful God is with humanity, despite our posture towards him. He stays faithful. And in essence, him walking through it was basically saying, if I don't hold up my end of the covenant, I will be cut in half. And if you don't hold up your end of the covenant, I will be cut in half. In essence, I'm going to be cut in half. That God loves us that much. How that applies to us today is really interesting, because as we talk about what it means to be a follower of Jesus, a disciple of Jesus, to allow the Holy Spirit to live in us and to transform us, where God writes his law on our hearts. This idea that God writes on our hearts his character, which his character is relational faithfulness, relational integrity. So if God's character is being written on our hearts as we submit to him, as we follow him, as he transforms us, then our relationships will begin to be relationally faithful, even with those whom we disagree with, even those whom we struggle with. Even, you can use your imagination, but in the situations that we're in currently with these race conversations, with the protests and the riots and everything, relational integrity means that we treat each other with love and respect, and we listen and we talk, and we allow the love of God to flow through us to those whom we disagree with. And we actually care to position ourselves with a posture of love and listening, rather than a posture of anger and disagreement in an angry way, I guess.
Absolutely. And with that, the posture of humility, being willing to learn from someone who's perhaps very different from you, or has very different views than you. The need to be humble in that relationship and approach it with a heart of, I can learn from you because you have a life experience, and you might through this learn something from me, where neither one of us is the expert in this area, and we're able to recognize that we need each other to get through this, and we need each other to find a better way, to find any sort of semblance of solution to move forward. Yeah. And I think with God being so humble that he offered himself as the sacrifice, is saying, look, you can't do this. So rather than you having to pay the eternal price and have no choice, I would much rather pay this price for you. Yeah. And I think we can learn a ton of that, and apply it to our relationships we're in now, as far as like, maybe if I get super angry with somebody and I go and talk with them, I'm unwilling to learn from them. And unwilling to come down to a place where I might be wrong, and my anger could be an idol that is separating me from experiencing joy and from experiencing the love of God. And yeah, I think anger is a pretty prevalent emotion in a lot of what we see and what we may experience. I have something and it could be taken away, but God's gift could never be taken away. He would certainly never take it from us. Mm-hmm. But I think if we focus on anything besides him, then that has the strength to separate us.
It's great thoughts, guys. I like it. I like it all. So our time is kind of coming to a close, because we don't want to have a 2-hour sermon.
Yeah, sorry, I talked way too much there. No, I'm just playing.
we're just scratching the surface.
Right now. Man, I can't even imagine. We'd just be here for hours.
Blake and Nick have promised me that their first sermons will be 2 hours long for each presentation. And
we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
They just got at a seminary. Nick's a theologian as well, so they need to get you guys up to speed, man.
Yeah. We've heard what Jeff's been preaching. No, I'm just playing.
We're here to correct that theology.
No, I brought Brussels sprouts just for Jeff.
I actually like Brussels sprouts.
You wouldn't like these ones. They're great value frozen. I don't know about that. No.
Okay, maybe not. I love my greens and veggies though, man, and fruits. I'm weird like that.
No, you're not weird.
Well, yeah, like compared to most people, because when COVID hit, everyone ran to the store and got junk food, and I went in and I was like, good, the veggies are all still here. I'm okay.
That's true. Toilet paper, yeah.
I wasn't worried about that, but.
Good.
But anyways, I am so tickled, excited that I was just talking to someone today, and how Nick is going to be here at the district for River's Edge, Sheridan and Grand Ronde. I was thinking about like it's just what I do know of Nick. I just feel like it's such an amazing fit, and with his skills and his passions and interests, like, and you're just gonna love the area out here. It is beautiful, and the coastline. There's so many hikes I have to tell you guys about, and I think Newberg is
another video. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Don't
Newberg,
publicize it though.
I'm excited for Newberg, for you, Blake. They're getting this all-star, and Blake is good at sports, so everyone watch out.
No, I'm not.
You're good at football, bro.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'm stoked that Nick and I are gonna be at the same school. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just super stoked that we'll be able to see each other at that school. And I'm so, when I first heard that Newberg could be a possibility, my first question was, is there a school near there? And they said, yeah, it's McMinnville. I was like, wait, really? Oh, cool. I've heard awesome things from Jeff about that school. So I'm so stoked that we'll be able to be involved there together.
And you'll get cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
I need to come back and visit, like, timely visits.
No, I think
they're about to come out of the oven.
We need to teach the kindergartners and first graders and second graders how to bake good sourdough cinnamon rolls. That way they're getting better, over the next years out there.
By graduation, you have to be able to know how to do this all on your own.
Yep.
Done.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited, guys. I'm a holy jealousy. I'm super excited for you guys. Like you mentioned with the school, that has been one of my great joys of working here, is working with the school, and so many fun times, PE and just playing on the field with the kids. And they have a lot going on here. So you guys will.
Andrews even comes out there, right? Scott Ward and Collaborative Ministry comes out there.
Right.
They had, I don't know if they still will, but
they did this year via Zoom.
Okay, cool.
So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
So you might have them come visit next year. It's a super cool community. I have been blessed because I feel like I didn't have to be someone I wasn't. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to put on a show. I didn't have to put on my bass gear and boxing gloves and.
Yeah. I see it back there on your bookshelf. No, I'm just kidding.
So I'm excited for you guys walking in here, and man, just be praying for you guys' ministry, and what a cool community. And man, I've been saying this over and over again. I'm jealous. I'm excited. I'm sad.
Yeah, you love it. You love them. That's a really good place to be. It's really nice that you're generous with helping us make connections out there before you leave. That can be a really challenging thing to fit and make time for. So no doubt you're busy with everything going on right now.
Oh, for sure. It worked out. Someone had the idea and I was like, that's a great idea. So Matt Weber. So yeah, well, I'm excited for you guys, and I'm going to come back and visit at some point, not immediately, but at some point. And excited for you to be here, Nick. So excited.
Oh, and yeah. I'm excited for you that you're exploring chaplaincy and moving into that area. That's a really important area, and a challenging one too. Taking a unit of CPE, and so you're in for a treat. But it is rewarding. And I know that the Lord's going to bless you in amazing ways as you pursue that.
Appreciate it, guys. And big transition for me, but I know it's a good one. It's where God's leading. So yeah, well, appreciate you guys taking the time, and so excited to see how God's going to work this coming year. And we'll be in touch. I'm definitely going to be connecting, just seeing how things are going, because I'll be missing everyone and whatnot. So looking forward to that.
We'll make sure to get a camper for in the driveway when you come out and visit.
or a tent.
Or a tent, yeah. Hammock or something, yeah.
As long as I have some cinnamon rolls inside the tent, I'll be okay.
We can make that happen. Nick can make that happen.
I seen a picture. You've made cinnamon rolls too, Blake. So
It's true, but they're not sourdough. So we need to keep that recipe.
we'll need to have a bake off and compare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then Nick can play the banjo in the background while I'm trying your different.
I don't play the banjo.
We'll get you one.
You're so good musically. You're probably like my mom. Just pick up an instrument and go.
Yeah,
There's a banjo app probably.
Probably. Yeah, I'll get a banjo app.
There you go.
That's a great idea. All right, we could talk forever. But yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys, and excited for all 4 churches and the school to get to know you guys.
Yeah.
So Godspeed, and looking forward to it, and God's blessing on your ministries.
Thank you.
Thanks.